And welcome back to our Save a Seat series here on Patreon, and happy Pride Month to all our listeners. We have a very special episode for you today. I am joined by Candace and Sissy Boyd-Simmons, and we are going to talk a little bit about Pride and Juneteenth and the history there. We covered this a little bit in our Spotify episode, so if you haven't listened to that, I don't know what you're doing here. Pause this, go listen to that first, and then you can come back and finish this episode. But I am so glad to have you guys back. Welcome again, Candace and Sissy.
Thank you.
So for those people that just ignored this and didn't go listen to our Spotify episode, will you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves for our audience and let them know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I am Candace Boyd-Simmons. I am a food creative and nonprofit worker here in the city of Indianapolis. I'm also the co-host of Black Girls Eating Podcast.
And I am Sissy Boyd-Simmons, and I am in HR.
Awesome. Will you tell us a little bit about your podcast? I would love to hear a little bit about that for our listeners that are into podcasts and may want to check you out.
Yeah, sure. So Black Girls Eating is a podcast about justice, well-seasoned food, and Black girl magic.
Love it.
Yeah, I co-host it with my good friend, Tenoria Askew. She's a local chef here in the city. And we just, talk about food. We talk about seasoning, but we also like to amplify Black and brown voices. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. Super excited to do it and to share about it here. So thank you.
Are you guys on all podcast platforms?
We are everywhere. We're on all podcast platforms, and you can also get to us at blackgirlseating.com.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you for that plug, and make sure that if you are listening to this, that you go check that out. But to kick off our Dig Deeper series here with you guys, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the intersectionality of, Pride Month and Juneteenth happening at the same time. And we talked a little bit about in our first episode that, if they don't coincide, if there aren't events that cover both things, that's okay, because Juneteenth should exist as its own thing and get its own moment to exist and be recognized. But how would you say that, Pride Month, celebrating being queer, celebrating Black history, and being your own true, authentic selves, how would you see that intertwining in the years to come?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think for starters, you cannot have a Pride Month without recognizing that Pride Month was started because of a Black woman, right? Like you can't have Pride without Black queer people. So I think that's the first thing. I'd hope that in the future, we don't necessarily have to have all these little boxes and have to have, all of these little labels and have to have all of these little intricacies that make us who we are. I hope that we can say, okay, yes, we have this rainbow, so to speak, of people and colors and all the ways that we have. People need to be able to just show up as themselves. So however that looks, right? When I come in the room, you're not going to know that I'm a queer person unless you know me or that I tell you. But you're also always going to know that I'm a Black woman, right? So that's the first thing that I'm going to center in the room. And so I think making sure that these type of celebrations don't get whitewashed, for lack of a better word, is really key. And to make sure that we are always keeping the history at the forefront is really, really important to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
We don't want to gloss over where we came, where we are, and where we're going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that you mentioned that we would not be where we are and have the Pride celebrations that we do unless there were Black queer women. And I think that it comes especially back to Marsha P. Johnson.
Absolutely.
If you guys want to talk about her, in case people don't know who she is, like, she's such an influential figure and has a lot to do with the Stonewall riots that eventually turned into what Pride is today.
Absolutely. I mean, Marsha is why we have Pride. I mean, Stonewall was riots that happened, and it was literally like, I almost want to call it like a call to action, so to speak, because it's kind of just like, hey, look, like, this isn't right, but this is what we're going to do. And so Marsha being at the forefront of that is why we have Pride today. And I think anytime you have a Pride celebration, no matter whether it's in Indianapolis, Indiana, or Paducah, Kentucky, you need to lift Marsha's name up and almost have Marsha as, Marsha needs to be the inaugural, parade champion every single time, right? Because we don't have Pride without her. So I think it's really important that we lift her up and we always keep her name at the forefront of that. Her name, her face, her likeness, everything that she did. I mean, being, out and queer in the 70s was still very much taboo, right?
Absolutely.
So the fact that, she had the courage and the bravery to stand strong and say, hey, look, this is who I am. And I'm going to stand here flat-footed and be who I am. And you just going to take it, here for it every day. Let me channel that every moment.
Yeah, and Stonewall had become such a safe place for these people, and then all of a sudden it was being occupied and terrorized by cops. And I just love that she stood up and was like, enough is enough. Like, we're not going to tolerate our spaces being invaded and not feeling safe anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Gotta hand it to her.
Yeah. Just imagine that kind of courage back then. I mean, not having all the tools that we have now. I mean, she
tools, support from your own community, like to start a revolution, because that's what it was.
Right. And they really weren't that far away from segregation. Like, it had not been that long.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother subject. You're already segregated that way, but you're also segregated because you're queer.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's some strength. Supernatural.